Good morning, chemistry students. Here's your corrections video for ChemQuest 26 about transition metals. So we have some information, charges of some transition elements. So far you have learned that you can predict the charge that an ion will have based on its location on the periodic table. However, the transition elements are not easy to predict. A few common transition elements are listed below. You should memorize their charges. Silver Ag plus zinc Zn plus 2 and cadmium Cd2 plus. So remember, we're talking about transition metals. So we're talking about these short columns and underneath this heavy stair-step line as well as down in here. Okay, and they don't follow predictable patterns. Now, they tell you to memorize them. But notice here, I have silver, cadmium, and zinc on your helper sheet for you. So it's not something you have to memorize. So write the formulas for the following compounds. So again, we're writing the formulas. So these are all ionic compounds because they have metals in them. So remember, we're going to do symbols, charges, crisscross, and then make sure we have the lowest whole number ratio. Okay, we did this on a previous ChemQuest. We do this in our notes. So our symbol for silver is Ag. Its charge is +1. Nitrate that you have memorized is NO3. Charge is -1. I'd crisscross down ones, and so I don't need to do anything. Letter B, zinc is Zn. Its charge is +2. Phosphate is PO4. Its charge is -3. So I'm going to crisscross down. I have a 3. I need a parentheses and a 2. For cadmium chloride, Cd, charge is +2. Chloride is Cl, charge is -1. And again, I know chloride is -1 because it is in group 7A, and group 7A has a charge of -1. So I crisscross down and I have CdCl2. Information, more than one possible charge. Many transition elements can have more than one charge when they become an ion. Copper ions, for example, can be Cu plus or Cu2 plus. As another example, iron ions are sometimes Fe2 plus and sometimes Fe3 plus. Again, I give you this information on your helper sheet, right? That's what this information is. Here's the elements, here are their possible charges. Copper and iron are in the D block, so you need to calculate their charge by comparing what bonds to them. Find the charge on copper and iron in each of the following compounds. So when you're trying to figure out that charge, remember we're going to focus on the anion, so our negatively charged ion. And remember that because this is an ionic compound, the total positive charge has to equal our total negative charge. So we have chloride here. Chloride has a charge of -1 because, again, it's in group 7A. And there's 2 of them, so my total negative charge is -2. That means my total positive charge has to be +2, and there's just 1 copper here, so this is copper with a +2 charge. Here, again, chloride is -1 because it's in group 7A. There's just 1 of them, so my charge is -1. Total negative charge, so my total positive charge has to be +1, and there's just 1 copper, so this is copper with a +1 charge. Over here, we have sulfate. Sulfate is a polyatomic ion you have memorized. It has a charge of -2. There's just 1 of it, so my total negative charge is -2. So that means my total positive charge has to be +2, and there's only 1 iron, so this is an iron with a +2 charge. Over here we have sulfate. Sulfate still has a charge of -2, but this time there are 3 of them, so my total negative charge is -6. That means my total positive charge has to be +6, and notice I have 2 irons here, so each iron has a charge of +3. Again, you did this on a ChemQuest when you looked at the charges. It was an X, but you did the same thing. Number 3 says, give your best attempt at naming the compounds from question 9. They are rewritten below. So again, remember to name, we combine the name of our cation and our anion. Remember, cations we name, it's the element name plus the word ion. And for the anions, we take off their ending and they end in "ide." So this is copper chloride. This is copper chloride, yet they have different formulas. This is iron sulfate. This is iron sulfate. So hopefully you're realizing that this sort of presents a problem because we have different formulas and we have the same name. So information, formulas containing Roman numerals. You probably put this same name for the compounds in questions 3A and 3B. You may also have put the same name for the compounds in 3C and 3D, but these are not the same compound. You cannot have the same name for two different compounds. Here are the correct names for the compounds in questions 2 and 3. So this is copper 2 chloride, this is copper 1 chloride, this is iron 2 sulfate, and this is iron 3 sulfate. Now, I would give these a second name. These are their names using the classical system, the stock system, sorry. I want you to name it also with the classical system. Remember, those were directions I gave you. So, again, copper with a +1 is the lower. So, again, when I'm doing classical system, us goes on my lower charge. That's my suffix. It goes on my higher charged one. So, copper with a +1, so this would be cuprous chloride. Because this is that's the higher charged one. It should be cupric. +1 is the lower charged one, so it's cuprous chloride. All right, iron +2 and +3, so here is my iron +2 +3. +2 is the lower, so it's going to get the us ending. So this is ferrous sulfate. This is ferric sulfate because it's the higher charged one. Again, I want you to practice naming them both ways. So it says, compare your answers for 9 with the names of the compounds given in the information section. What do the Roman numerals stand for? So what they want you to notice is, up here we said copper had a +2 charge, and notice I named this copper 2. Up here this was copper with a +1, notice I named this copper 1. Up here this was iron with a +2 charge, notice I named this iron 2. Up here this was iron with a +3 charge, notice I named this iron 3. So what are the Roman numerals telling you? The Roman numerals are equal to the charge of the cation. Now you do need to know your Roman numerals. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So why is MnO2 called manganese 4 oxide? So again, we look at MnO2. Again, to figure out the charge on manganese, we look at our oxygen. Oxygen has a charge of -2 because it's in group 6A. There's 2 of them, so my total negative charge is -4. So my total positive charge has to be +4. So this is manganese 4 oxide. The 4 is telling you the charge on the metal. Now, again, I would name this a second time. So notice for manganese, there is a +2 and a +4, and this was the higher charged one. So this would be manganese, looking at my Latin root here. Okay. And this was 4 was the higher charged one, so ic ending. and then oxide. Number 6. Name the following compounds. Note, assume that anytime you have a transition metal element, a D block element, so again, anytime you're talking about something in your short columns here, okay, you must use a Roman numeral unless the element is silver, zinc, or cadmium. So, because it's nickel, and it's not one of these three listed here, I have to have a Roman numeral. How did we know it was 1? Because nitrate has a charge of -1. There's one of them, so my total positive charge has to be +1. Okay. Again, nickel, to name it a second time, +1 is definitely the lower charged one, so I would call this nickel-us nitrate as well, using that Latin root. Alright, so CO3 is a polyatomic ion you have memorized. It's carbonate. It has a charge of -2. There are 3 of them, so that's a -6 charge. So this has to be a +6, but there are 2 chromiums. So each chromium has a +3 charge. So this is chromium 3 carbonate. That's one name. And chromium has +2 +3. So this was the +3, so this is the higher charged one. So this is chrome ic carbonate. All right, our next one. NO3 has a charge of -1, that's nitrate. So -1, so our iron has to be a +1. So this is iron, Roman numeral 1, nitrate. And again, when I look at iron, I have a +2 +3, so it's definitely the lower charge one. So this would be ferrous nitrate. All right, COCl2. So again, it's not silver, zinc, or cadmium, so charge is -1. There's 2 of them, so I have a -2 charge. Cobalt has to be a +2, and there's just 1 cobalt. So this is cobalt 2 chloride. Cobalt, right here, it's still cobalt, +2 or +3. This is the lower charged one, so this would be cobaltous chloride. Letter E. Again, not one of the 3, so I have to use a Roman numeral. Phosphate has a charge of -3, and there's 2 of them, so my total charge is -6. So my total positive charge has to be +6, but there are 3 of them. So each copper is a +2. So this would be copper 2 phosphate. My other name again for copper, +2 is the higher charge, so it's going to be cupric phosphate. All right, MnS, again, not silver, zinc, or cadmium. Sulfur has a charge of -2 because it's in group 6A. So my total negative charge is -2, so this has to be +2. So Mn is manganese, ManGanese, 2 sulfide. And then again, it's manganese with a +2 charge. That's my lower charged one, so I'm going to do the mangus with the OUS ending because it's the lower charged one, sulfide. All right, Zn. This is one of the ones. I don't have to use a Roman numeral. I don't have to name it twice because it only has one possible charge. So this is just zinc chloride. And again, silver is one of the ones that only has one possible charge, so I just have to name it once. This is silver nitrate. Number 7, write formulas for the following compounds. The first one's done for you. So again, to do this, because these are all ionic compounds, we're going to do the symbols, charges, crisscross, lowest whole number ratio. So symbols, charges, crisscross, lowest whole number ratio. So to do this one, again, we had mercury, which is Hg. The 2 is telling me it's a +2 charge. Acetate is on your helper sheet, right? It's C2H3O2 with a charge of -1, so I need parentheses and a 2. Okay, so that's where that came from. So for chromium, chromium's element symbol is Cr, +3 because of the Roman numeral. Sulfate is SO4 that you have memorized with a charge of -2. I crisscross down, and I'm going to need parentheses. So Cr2, SO4 in parentheses, and R3. Iron is Fe. The 1 is telling me it's a +1 charge. Carbonate is CO3 that you have memorized with a -2 charge. I crisscross down. I don't need parentheses, so this is Fe2CO3. Potassium carbonate. Again, potassium. There's no Roman numeral here because potassium's in a tall column. And because potassium's in a tall column, you should know that its charge is +1. So potassium has a charge of +1. Carbonate is CO3 with a charge of -2. I crisscross down, and I get K2CO3. Strontium nitride, same thing. Strontium's in a tall column, so it only has one possible charge. Remember, it's +2 in group 2A. So strontium is Sr, charge of +2. Nitride, IDE ending means that's nitrogen. Nitrogen's in this group, so it has a charge of -3, 5A. So N3 negative. I crisscross down, right? And I have Sr3N2. Manganese 4 chlorate. Manganese is Mn. The 4 is telling me the charge on the manganese. Chlorate you have memorized as ClO3 with a charge of -1. I crisscross down. I am going to need parentheses. Mn, ClO3 in parentheses outside my parentheses 4. Number 8, look at the previous questions, parts 7D and 7E. Notice how potassium carbonate and strontium nitride do not contain a Roman numeral in the name. The other names in question 7 all have a Roman numeral in the name. Why? Again, that's because elements in the tall columns on the periodic table only have one possible charge. So you don't use Roman numerals and you don't name them twice. So again, remember, tall columns, group 1A has a charge of +1, 2A +2, 3A, which is pretty much these two, has a charge of +3, 5A -3, 6A -2, 7A -1. Number 9, name the following compounds, only use a Roman numeral when necessary. So again, I look at my metal Mg. Mg is in a tall column, so I don't need to use a Roman numeral, and I don't need to name this twice. So Mg is magnesium ion, and this is chloride, so this is just magnesium chloride. Still magnesium, so still tall column, don't have to use Roman numerals. This is chlorate, so this is magnesium chlorate. Mn. Mn's in a short column. And Manganese is on my helper sheet with more than one possible charge, so I'm going to have to use Roman numerals. So I look at my Cl, it has a charge of -1, there's 2 of them, so this is a -2 charge total, so this has to be a +2. So this is manganese 2 chloride. And then to name it with the stock system, 2 is the lower charged, so I'm going to put the us ending on it. Okay, so it's going to be manganous chloride. Letter D, manganese again. So same thing, I already know it's in a short column and has more than one possible charge. Chlorate has a charge of -1, and there's 1 of them. So this is manganese with a +1. So this is nice if I can spell the element right, manganese 1 chlorate. And that's definitely the lower charged one. So it would be manganous chlorate. Again, we have manganese again. Chlorate still a charge of -1, but this time there's 2, so that's a total of the -2 charge. So this is a +2. So this is manganese 2 chlorate. And manganic chlorate. Alright, RB. Again, we have to look and see if it's in a tall column or short column. It's in a tall column, so I don't have to name it twice. I don't have to use Roman numerals. So this is rubidium. R-U-B-I-D-I-U-M. SO4 is sulfate. Rubidium sulfate. Again, rubidium again. Tall column, only one possible name. So this is rubidium. But not sulfate this time. This is sulfur. And anions, they lose their ending and get "ide", so this is sulfide. Alright, Cr. Chromium's in a short column. So I look at my helper sheet, and chromium has more than one possible charge. So SO4, there's 1 of them. It has a charge of -2, so my total negative charge is -2. My total positive charge has to be +2, but there's 2 of them. So each chromium has a charge of +1. So this is chromium 1 sulfate. And again, my charges on chromium, I don't even have a +1 listed, so we'll say it's the lower charge one. So it's chromous sulfate. Number 10. Name the following compounds. All of them are transition metals, but you only need Roman numerals for A, not B and C. The reason we don't need Roman numerals for B and C is there's silver and cadmium that only have one possible charge. So then we treat them just like the elements in the tall columns, where we just combine the names of the cation and the anion. So this is going to be silver nitrate, because ZO3 is nitrate. This is cadmium chloride. Here, though, we have to figure out what charge this nickel has. Again, this is sulfate. It has a charge of -2. There's 2 of them, so my total negative charge is -4. My nickel has to have a +4. So this is nickel 4 sulfate. And again, if I look at nickel on my helper sheet, I don't even have a 4, so it must be the higher charged one. So we're going to say it's nickelic sulfate. Number 11, why didn't you need Roman numerals for B and C in question 10? Because those metals only have one possible charge. So if you were struggling with that ChemQuest, I hope that helps. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.